Oh, live. People have been asking me to do recap podcasts again for Amazing Race. So, for the first time since the summer of 2013, since Amazing Race Canada won, here I am doing a recap podcast. And if we have time at the end, we'll interview Kim and Penn Holderness from season 33. Oh, there's somebody in the chat. Somebody's wasting their time with this. I mean, it's Tuesday. The next episode airs tomorrow. So, I mean, you've probably seen the episode multiple times and you've listened to a bunch of recap podcasts and interviews by this point. So, I don't know why you're wasting your time with me. Uh, I mean, yeah, don't you have a Nintendo Switch or a book to read? Okay, so episode one of season 34 of Amazing Race. Uh, let's see. I hear they started outside of the United States, and that was a big deal because that very rarely happens. Amazing Race Australia 4 did it. I think season two of the Amazing Race China did it. I have the notes down. I don't know why I'm trying to think of it off the top of my head. I typed it all down. I have a bunch of stats. I have a bunch of stats here that I looked up, and everyone's saying, "Oh, why can't they just start in the states as normal?" Well, not everyone. I'm just presuming people have said it. Some people have said it. And with the chartered plane and having everybody on the same flight, what's the point of making them go to the airport to get on the private plane? That's just a huge waste of time. In fact, even when the world goes back to normal and they still want to save money by having everybody on the same flight, or at least when they get to their first destination city to have a mass equalizer, uh, just just cut to them already being the first destination city so we don't waste all of that time beforehand. However, I wouldn't mind seeing interactions at the airport or right before the first leg starts between the teams, because that was my favorite way to see teams being introduced at the start of the season, rather than just Phil Kogan's brief Q&A to size people up at the starting line. So that's one stat out of the way. And really, overall, we could always have starting lines permanently too. We don't have to go back and forth because 20 starting lines have been in LA or Southern California out of the 33 seasons of Amazing Race US, or out of 34, because it didn't happen this time either. So it's still at 20. And in case anyone's curious about the breakdown, New York's had the starting line 5 times, Vegas once, Florida twice, Chicago once, Denver once, Seattle once, Gloucester once, and Munich, and then of course the virtual starting line for season 28, because the producers were trying to understand how social media worked and try to tap into that market somehow. So there you go. That's the full breakdown. And I mean, I always miss out on Phil Kogan trying to come up with creative ways to introduce Southern California for the 24th, 21st, 24th. That's not, it's like combining 21st and 24th there. He just ran out of ways to introduce Southern California. So, I mean, we had a starting line at Pasadena City Hall. That's when you know you're running out of places to start a race. And this is the first proper 12-team season without some sort of bullshit season premiere twist since season 4. Since season 4, we had 2 other 12-team seasons in the American version where we unfortunately lost Billet and Saeed. It's been a few years since I've seen that season, so I've forgotten their pronunciation. Sorry, guys. And Eric and Lisa, of course, in season 15 with that even more bullshit starting line twist where they got eliminated. Eric thought they would be numero uno, as he said in his opening confessional, but he ended up being numero doce. Funny thing with them is that they lived a few kilometers away from the starting line in season 15. So when you hear on reality shows, oh, if you get eliminated, you're going home, but really they just go to elimination station or Ponderosa or a random villa. Here with Eric and Lisa, going home means they really could have gone home. They could just walk and be back home in half an hour, depending on how fast they can move with their heavy backpacks. So it's good that 30 seasons later, a proper 12-team season, no bullshit twist that eliminates a team halfway through or at the starting line. So good for them. And the good thing about having the Amazing Race film in Munich with Phil saying, "Oh, 11 of you are going to be eliminated," it was much better than, say, Steven Spielberg saying that 11 people were going to be eliminated in Munich, because that had a completely different connotation when I had to see that movie in high school. Okay, so we got a couple stats. Oh, and of course, who can forget the Amazing Race Asia 5 starting line twist where they had Liz and Nicole eliminated the same way as Eric and Lisa. Granted, that was an 11-team season for Amazing Race Asia 5, and they didn't really get to interact with the rest of the season 5 cast. And I don't know how, but Liz and Nicole are quite close with Joey Cavino of season 29. Because I guess Liz and Nicole have a connection to the Boston area, or are originally from there, or maybe a law enforcement connection to Joey Cavino. But I could be completely making that up too. You gotta verify that stuff. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. Okay, and now another stat is we have 6 teams with an average of 12.0 worldwide. 6 teams who legitimately have a 12.0 average. We're ignoring whatever the hell has been going on in Amazing Race Australia for the past couple seasons, because some teams there have a 12.0 average or worse. So we're just going to ignore that. So we have Gene and Sylvia of Amazing Race 3 with a 12.0 average, the team that infamously said, "Fear no man, be terrified of soccer mom." Then the soccer moms go home in 12th, and it's not even close. They were fucked over from the beginning. Deborah and Steve of Amazing Race 4, you might remember them. They were crossover contestants from The Biggest Loser. And Malias of Amazing Race Canada 3. Elias Theodoro was the only contestant on Amazing Race who I met before he was on The Amazing Race. So to hear that he passed away recently, it's quite the travesty. I hate that. Hate. Cancer sucks. And then, of course, Hamarots Lemillion, however you pronounce it, with the Amazing Race Israel. Let's say Amazing Race Israel, so I don't get scolded for being rusty on my Hebrew pronunciation, even though Israel was one of the last few countries I visited. So we had Noah and Ma'ayan of Hamarots Lemillion 6 also have a 12.0 average. They were cousins. And Michael and Ruthie of Hamarots Lemillion 8. I hear if Albert Pujols hits 15 more home runs, he will surpass Ruthie in the career home run leaderboard. And of course, now we have Asta and Nina as another team with a 12.0 average. So maybe all of these teams can get together. You got Soccer Moms, The Biggest Loser crossover. Well, they can't meet up with Elias, I guess. Max, the model, Elias's partner there. And then the 2 teams from Hamarots Lemillion. And now you have comedic Asian lesbians. So let's get all these people together and maybe they can have a therapy session of some sort. I don't know who would front the money for that, if that would be Bruckheimer or Van Munster or Doganieri. Maybe Patrick. Patrick could step in, And other random stats I pulled up. The log sawing task has been done multiple times over the years in Amazing Race US. The Reality Guys podcast, which I appeared on for their preview, they joked about the Looney Lumberjacks minigame from Mario Party 2. And I knew I had joked about the Looney Lumberjacks minigame at some point in my TARstorian blog, and I remembered, oh yes, the Amazing Race 8 Family Edition New Orleans leg had a sawing task, or cutting wood. And the funny thing with that is that Carissa Gagan, who was a 4th grader, 9 years old at the time of Amazing Race 8 Family Edition, she was trying to help out. She struggled, but she was trying to help out with the saw. And all I can think of is that the teams who struggled this leg, I hate to break it to you guys, but you're officially weaker than a 9-year-old schoolgirl if you struggled with this. That's a blow to everyone's ego out there who struggled. And in fact, that should be a spin-off of Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? Should just be Are you weaker than a fourth grader? That would be that'd be a hilarious game show to watch. And Asta and Nina even themselves admitted that they haven't had much experience with wood. So only if they were on season 8 or season 14 also had a wood cutting task also in Germany in the Munich area. Just outside of Munich they had it. The teams didn't participate in it. They were experts who were cutting off the piece of wood, and I think the next clue was on there if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember if I'm 100% right because, dear God, do I hate season 14 of The Amazing Race. It's still my least favorite season that isn't a returnee season. Okay, another stat. This was the 11th season to visit Germany, and since CBS released all the locations being visited, Germany will still hang on to being the second most visited European country. France, of course, is indeed number one. And we can break that down further and think, okay, they've been to Germany 11 seasons. How many of those visits were to Munich? Well, I'm glad you asked because it's been an excessive amount. It's been a hell of a lot, hell of a lot of visits to Munich. Amazing Race 3, of course, because I have a photographic memory of the third season of Amazing Race. So they went there. Season 9 also went to Munich. Season 14 went to Munich. And season 26 also went to Munich because that one was clear because that's when Jeff and Jackie made their sex tape. It was I can't remember the title off my top of my head, but yeah, I'll have to go back through my notes for season 26 because that's definitely where they made their sex tape. I didn't buy it, but I'm sure other people did. Horny people probably. So stupid. Okay, and the region of Bavaria where Munich is located was also visited in season 20. In fact, they visited Neuschwanstein Castle, which was also visited in season 3 of Amazing Race. So clearly production really likes going to Munich. It might be the most visited city ever in the American version of Amazing Race. That's five visits to the same city. Why visits to Munich? I'm thinking of Paris. Paris gets visited a lot in Amazing Race, but 5 times? 5 times to Paris? I don't know about that. 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. And then I went further and thought, well, do all of the other international versions also really like Munich? So I went on the old Wikipedia pages, and Germany has only been visited once in all of the other foreign versions, and that was in season 3 of the Amazing Race China Celebrity Edition. And guess what? They also went to Munich. So there you go. Munich is always top choice. If the first choice should a franchise go there. I guess it's just a jolly old good time for production to go there rather than Berlin or Hamburg. I went to Germany myself earlier this year. I went to Trier. It's an interesting city, especially because of the river that runs through it. It's very scenic. I like it there. It's pretty chill. Okay, and well, guess what? Because of all the visits to Munich, we can break these stats down even further because we had another overlapping route marker. And this one I knew right away. Again, I have a photographic memory of season 3 of The Amazing Race. And the pit stop location was the Friedenschnegel. And for those of you who don't have a good memory or are new to The Amazing Race, you might be thinking, the Friedenschnegel, isn't that a German lesbian sex position that Asta and Nina learned before they went to elimination station or flew back home? And no, it's the statue that served as the pit stop for this leg. And if you go back to season 3, the very first visit to Germany, the very first visit to Munich as well, the very first route marker they ever used in Germany was also the Friedenschnegel. And I remember that because Terry and Ian had just won the previous leg in Morocco using the fast forward, so they were the first ones to get to Munich. And the clue was given to them by a puppet named Casper Lay. Someone else reminded me of the name of the puppet. I just thought, why wasn't the puppet the pit stop greeter for season 34 here? They're at the Friedenschnagel. That's where Casperley was last time. But I guess after 31 seasons, I don't know if Casperley succumbed to some sort of disease or old age, or he was run over by a car or cancer. But Casperley, he didn't get to be the pit stop greeter. So that was upsetting. I feel like that would have been a really, really good throwback, a switchback, if you will. In fact, the the sawing task that could have been a switchback. In fact, also barrel rolling could be a switchback because that's a task they frequently like to do when they're in Europe. Off the top of my head, we had rolling the wine barrels in Oporto in season 3 as part of a detour. We also had in season 22, which I just covered for TARstorian, they had to transport the barrels of whiskey in Scotland. So here you go. If you're in Europe on the Amazing Race, as they say in the Amazing Race Star Fox edition, do a barrel roll. And for those of you that don't know the Amazing Race Star Fox edition, that was a fanfic that I wrote for the Amazing Race when I was 11 years old in the 6th grade. Oh, I miss Pepe and Falco. Oh, and of course, breaking through ice to get a clue. That was originally done in the season finale of season 2 of the Amazing Race US, where they had to use all the different items to figure out how to get to that clue. They could even use the heel of a shoe to break through the ice. Or maybe that was Amazing Race Australia too, because they also had an ice breaking task to get through a clue. They did that in Banff. And that was hilarious because Paul and Steve, Paul was the most muscular guy in the cast. They didn't know where the clue was, so they chiseled through all the ice they could see in the marked area. In fact, Paul chiseled so much ice that he chiseled more than his own chiseled abs were. So watch Amazing Race Australia too. It's my favorite international season and the closest in quality to the Amazing Race 5 US. Okay. And oh, let's go. I still got more stats here. I have a lot of stats. Are you still with me? We're 17 minutes into this shit. Okay. So outside of the horrendous Amazing Race 31 reality showdown, Derek and Claire are the fifth team to cross over from Big Brother to the Amazing Race US. We had, of course, my personal favorite crossover, Allison and Donnie, who were in Amazing Race 5. I was about to say Amazing Race Asia 5. Allison and Donnie are not Asian. Donnie might be. Jeff and Jordan were at Amazing Race 16. Brendan and Rachel were at Amazing Race 20 and 24. And Bacon and Tori Spelling were in the Amazing Race 30. And coincidentally enough, Derek and Claire are the third of these Big Brother crossover teams to win the very first leg of the race. So as I've stated before in other podcasts, teams that already have that CBS experience from being on Survivor, Big Brother, The Challenge, I guess, they know the metagame that's going on, and that's a huge advantage. When I say metagame, being used to cameras, doing confessionals, knowing how to read through the rules and the structure of how challenges work. Unless it's the challenge, in which case there is no structure. It's just they're just fucking everything up on the spot. And yeah, that's a huge advantage very early on when everyone is still trying to figure out what show they are on, and just that adrenaline. That's the word I'm looking for. Adrenaline. Major adrenaline. So they've got all this adrenaline, and they're about to explode at the starting line. While Derek and Claire, I assume, would be a lot more calm, and they'll be accustomed to everything. Normal blood pressure, and can just coast through the leg. And they coast through a first place finish. So 3 out of 5 times, the crossover Big Brother team takes the first leg. And furthermore, the 2 teams who didn't win the first leg of the season that came from Big Brother, Brendan and Rachel, and Bacon and Tori Spelling, both teams finished second place on the first leg. So if you're in some sort of fantasy pool and want a cheap way to rack up points, well, if Joseph and Taylor end up on the Amazing Race 35, just put your bets on them to do really well in the first leg, because clearly it's either going to result in a gold medal or a silver medal on the first leg. Don't pick them thinking that they might be first out, because very clearly they won't be. Especially if it's presumed that somebody's just going to quit during the first leg too, if Joseph and Taylor are there. And this is the second season of the Amazing Race to be hyped up as having no non-elimination legs. I very, very vividly remember the Amazing Race 12 hyping up preseason with Phil Kogan doing all of his press circuits at the time. There weren't podcasts then. There were all these different media websites. IGN would interview Phil Kogan. Well, I didn't know IGN had an investment in the Amazing Race back then. And Phil Kogan said during Amazing Race 12, oh, there's no non-elimination legs. Well, the Italy leg for season 12 aired, and a lot of my extended family happened to be in town because Amazing Race 12 aired at a wonky time where I think was near a lot of holidays. And everyone's saying, oh, it's probably a non-elimination. Once you get down to 5 teams, it's always non-elimination. And then I was on the couch saying, oh, well, I read online interviews that it can't be a non-elimination because Phil Kogan said none of those exist this season. Well, Kenton Vixen stepped on the mat in last place, and I look like a complete dumbass because Phil Kogan says, hey, Kenton Vixen, guess what? This is the first of 2 non-elimination legs. Screw you, Logan Saunders. I just made a fool of you in front of your whole fucking family. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Phil Kogan. Still upset about that, and that was 15 years ago. Okay, and this time I'm not going to be fooled by that, Phil, because I know there's 12 episodes. There's 12 rounds of play, and there's 12 teams. So even if we had a final 2, that would still be 11 episodes. So unless you're adding in intruder teams and taking a page out of Amazing Race Australia 5's playbook, which I don't know why you would copy anything from Amazing Race Australia 5 or 6 unless you're just trying to see if you can get your own show canceled somehow. You're going to have to try and come up with some bullshit way to brand a leg as not being a non-elimination, which is fine. I mean, I know a lot of people who hate non-elimination legs. In fact, it can really disrupt the momentum of a season. Remember Amazing Race 8 Family Edition with their 6-6-5-5, 4-4-4, 3-3 elimination structure for the last 8 episodes? That took a while to get through Arizona, Wyoming, and Montana that season. Yeah, fun times. At least the Weavers really entertained us with their antics. Oh, and don't forget Utah and Colorado. Yeah, it was really fun to see the Linz family go off that little ski jump into a pool of water. Although the Linz family made me laugh quite a bit. It sounds like I'm dissing the Linz family, but that was not the intention. I was just trying to make it out that maybe Utah you don't use as an Amazing Race location, or where Bullet Bill or Uncle Bill or Wild Bill or whatever the hell his name was, maybe you don't go to his saloon in Wyoming. It's not a very interesting place to go and take a goofy picture in costumes. That sounds something more like Amazing Race Canada would do. Although the picture would probably be followed by some choreographed routine, which I hear some people out there who talked about Amazing Race Canada seem to really gravitate towards too. Okay, and one final stat is that this is the 34th season to feature Phil Kogan as host. And people are asking, oh, when is Phil Kogan going to step down? When is Julie Chen Moonves going to step down? When is Probst going to step down? Well, I don't know about the other two, but with Phil Kogan, that guy is never going to step down until he gets to visit Nepal. 34 seasons he's been waiting. I remember really early interviews where Phil is saying, I want to go to Nepal. That's the one place we haven't been to yet on the Amazing Race that I really want to go see. Well, they were supposed to go in 33, but then, well, we know what happened there. And in season 34, they're still using the charter plane. So Phil has to stick around till at least season 35. And if production was smart enough, if they know that's Phil's ultimate bucket list thing is for Amazing Race to go to Nepal, maybe you put it off as much as possible, because as soon as you go there, Phil Kogan has zero incentive to stick with the Amazing Race. I could just picture him just quitting on the spot right when he eliminates the team. He'll say, "Oh, uh, George and Betty, you've been eliminated here in Kathmandu. And now that this leg is finished, I am eliminating myself from the Amazing Race. Peace out. Seacrest out." Could totally see Phil doing that. I would be more surprised if he didn't do that after the season. He says, well, I mean, what else are we going to do? Go to Antigua and Barbuda and go to my childhood home? Maybe they'll do that. Maybe that'll be their last resort if he doesn't stick around after Nepal. Okay, I think those were all my stats. I barely looked at it. So a good chunk of it was improvised. And I got a lot of my terrible jokes in there. Yep, are you weaker than a fourth grader? We got through that, the 12.0 average. I stumbled a lot in my words at the beginning. So thanks for sticking through that. I'm amazed if you've made it this far. Okay, so now people want to know my overall thoughts on the season premiere and the scramble twist. I like the scramble twist. I liked it. I liked it a lot. It delayed alliances by at least one leg. So if you're thinking, oh, there's just going to be alliance on the first leg, and then they're going to ride it out to the finish line, and then I'm going to hate myself. No, it's with the scramble. Everyone is too scrambled to come up with any alliances, or as Rex Ryan likes to say, networking. So nobody can come up with any networking. And I like that everyone had to plot on the map to figure out where to go beforehand, and figure out how much time should they spend studying the map and asking for directions, and then try and be set for the next 3 hours. That's another thing that is somewhat annoying about newer American Amazing Race seasons, is the days get a lot shorter. Remember in season 17 in the Oman leg, when I think the filming was 15 hours from start to finish, and now we have a mega leg for season 32 where they essentially did 2 legs back to back, and that only took them 6 hours total. But if you're saying, oh, our really short legs a brand new thing, well, no, you can go back to season 13 where Nick and Star finished the second India leg from start to finish in about 90 minutes. And I think Andy and Tommy in season 19, the additional Thailand leg, they also did really, really quickly, where Phil even said, you just smoked your way through this course. It almost seemed like it took them less than an hour from start to finish. So it's just now being a more consistent trend, I guess is my point, to really shorten the legs. And I'm sure people were thinking, oh, he's going to make a joke involving that one team. But you are mistaken. I would not make a joke like that, because there's been other teams with a big height difference in other seasons where I've made that joke plenty of times before. Therefore, it would not be original. Okay, so I thought the scramble leg, the scramble twist idea is fine. I would also, just as an experiment, see them do it later on in the season, especially in a longer leg. Especially when they start out in a different country and then have to fly to the destination and then really be acquainted with the city, or multiple cities, or do it for multiple legs. Have a scramble that's set out for 2 legs in a row back to back. And maybe you include the pit stop location too, because that could add in the additional, like you get a, say for each task, with this leg, what they did is you got 3 pieces of the pit stop clue, and then you combine them to figure out where the pit stop is. What they could try and do next time is tell them where the pit stop location is, but they got to bring tokens, a token from each of the tasks they completed before being allowed to check in. So you can really, really do some planning. Although, on the other hand, it was interesting to see teams try to calculate where the pit stop could be. Knowing my Amazing Race fandom, I would be thinking, oh, Friedenschnagel, that looks like an ideal place for a pit stop because they've been here before, or Neuschenstein Castle. That would really stand out to me as a possible location as well. Because you figure, too, they got to make it, wherever the pit stop is, they have to make it somewhat even between all of the locations. Or make it where, if teams are smart enough, they can calculate where some of the big landmarks are in the city, and then be able to calculate their route that way, which is what some teams evidently tried to do. And that is pretty much it. Unfortunately, this was only planned for half an hour, so we do not have enough time to interview Kim and Penn. My apologies to the Holderness couple. We'll get them on next week when we do another stats breakdown. And until next week, no, tomorrow. The episode airs tomorrow. So until tomorrow, peace out and just chill till the next episode. It's over.